Climate change deniers. You know, they're a lot like anti-vaxxers, but instead of just trying to kill their own kids, they're trying to kill us all. Climate change is a prominent issue today, and the recent presidential debate revealed a lot about the current state of affairs surrounding the efforts to combat the crisis or, the lack thereof. And before we dive into this issue, let's establish one key fact. Climate change is real. There's no question that human activity has altered our climate for the worse, and we will not be entertaining any conspiracy theories during this segment. However, the conspiracy theories will be entertaining us.
What I find suspicious is that I have not heard, and I watch a lot of media, one of these moderately minded scientists come out and hose down the doomsday scenarios being peddled by environmentalists and our politicians.
I think CO2 is actually beneficial for us. It's heating up the earth, it's producing vegetation.
So tonight, we'll separate climate denial arguments into four main types. First, people that believe that carbon dioxide is not in fact a pollutant. Second, the argument that climate change can't be real because we've had cold weather recently. Third, the belief that climate change is a natural cycle and that it is not at all influenced by human impact. And finally, people that believe that climate change is real, but just not a big problem. So first, people that think that CO2 isn't a pollutant and that maybe it actually has some positive impacts.
So I say not only is carbon dioxide good, it is essential, and it's a good thing that we are putting some more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because it was running low before we came along.
CO2, we know its benefits for plants, but it is a known greenhouse gas, and we're pumping too much of it in, leading to global warming.
Well, actually, it may be a known greenhouse gas, but it's not known how strong it is in terms of changing the Earth's temperature.
I mean, there's not really much to say here, except for that CO2, or carbon dioxide, is absolutely a pollutant. It's one of the most impactful pollutants in the world, second only to plastic straws. All jokes aside, carbon dioxide is the biggest contributor to global warming, one of the most significant impacts of climate change. Once released into the atmosphere, CO2 acts as a barrier that traps energy from the sun in the lower atmosphere. It has been proven over and over again that carbon dioxide and all greenhouse gases are the root cause of climate change, and that people deny their significance are just as dangerous as the gases are. Luckily, several candidates in the recent presidential debates have proposed changes that decrease the amount of CO2 we release into the atmosphere.
That is why it's my plan to invest in green energy to reach 100% renewable energy by 2040.
My plan for tackling climate change is to pay for this transition by taxing coal and oil companies.
Instead, I want to focus on providing tax breaks and incentives to companies that reduce pollution and promote green practices. That's the only way to ensure that our economy thrives, our people thrive, and our environment recovers and begins to thrive again.
You see, it's candidates like these who we need in office so that they can figure out and start addressing these issues. However, there's a significant portion of people in our government that right now still believe in climate denial theories. For instance, this guy, James Inhofe, who still believes that climate change can't be real because it's snowing outside.
Of national attention, and in case we have forgotten, because we keep hearing that 2014 has been the warmest year on record, I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball, and that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out, very unseasonal. So here, Mr. President, catch this. You
know, honestly, regardless of how dumb this guy is, I like how he just kind of throws the snowball at someone. Wait, sorry, I've just been told we've received the rest of this video. Let's check it out.
Mr. President, catch this.
Well, at least we got one good thing out of that snowball. The key problem with this view is that the people that support it don't recognize the difference between climate and weather. These are wildly different concepts. Presenting weather occurrences as reflective of climate would be like showing me a movie's cast, for instance, Michael B. Jordan, Miles Teller, Kate Mara, Jamie Bell, Tony Kennel, an all-around stellar cast, and just asking me to assume that the movie is awesome. It really wasn't. In reality, these are completely different, if not entirely independent of each other. This is perhaps best illustrated by how we measure the two. Weather is found by real-time measurements of temperature, precipitation, humidity, and much more. Climate is found by aggregating weather statistics over decades. Yet despite this clear distinction, we still have people at the highest level of government spreading things like this tweet by our lovely president. NBC News just called it the Great Freeze, coldest weather in years. Is our country still spending money on the global warming hoax? Hundreds of thousands of people demand the same answers, and it's seriously disheartening. We humans didn't have a significant impact on the day-to-day weather. It will always be cold in the winter, warm in the summer, and sunny in Philadelphia. We can sometimes cause weather occurrences like acid rain, but it's generally consistent. And that's why we're not talking about weather change, we're talking about climate change, something human activity absolutely influences. Our emissions have altered climate patterns drastically, causing longer sunny periods than are on average more intense, and warmer air temperatures worldwide. This means that when one city, or even the whole eastern seaboard, has a cold streak, it's not enough evidence to claim that climate change doesn't exist. And now moving on to our third argument, that climate change is a natural cycle, not caused by human impact. One of the big names that supports this argument is Sarah Palin, the only Alaskan anyone knows, and also the suburban white mom whose version of fun is yelling at minimum wage employees. Here she is, speaking her piece about climate change.
It's perpetuated. It's repeated so often that too many people believe that, oh, well, I guess if 97% of all scientists believe that man's activities are creating changes in the weather, who am I to question that?
I think that anybody that can look the vast majority of scientists around the world in the eye and say that all of their findings are just total BS deserves to 1v1 Bill Nye. And believe me, you don't want to go up against this guy. But this is perhaps one of the most convincing climate change denial arguments, that human activity is not, in fact, accelerating global climate change, which is just a natural occurrence. These people believe that continuing with business as usual will have no adverse effects on the environment, which is hugely problematic. If we continue at our current rate, our carbon emissions will continue to increase and global warming will be irreversible in only 12 short years without immediate action. However, there are candidates in our current presidential elections who would severely impede this goal, playing the crisis down as an alarmist cash grab, especially candidates like Lisa Parker.
Climate change is inevitable. It happens all the time, naturally or whether spurred by human interference. Thus, there's really nothing we can do about it if it really is a problem. We have scientists coming out of the woodwork on both sides, stating things they've never stated before. It's scare tactics in our nation at work today. I think since we have not contributed to it and it is a natural occurrence, it's not fair to tax corporations and take people's jobs, their livelihoods, away from them for something that will happen anyway. That's completely out of our control. And you should not punish people for natural deaths. We do not put people in prison when an earthquake happens or when a tornado destroys a community. We should not tax people on climate change.
Sure, we don't put clouds in jail for causing a hurricane, but you know who we do put in jail? The people who are killing the planet. Parker's views are really worrying. They're not supported by any credible science, but she's still convincing millions that the climate crisis can be safely ignored, and that's unacceptable. So do us all a favor and get some educated people into office. Thank you, and good night.